Welcome to the Sales Mastery Summit. I'm Mary Pohl, your host, and with me today is Brian Snyder, who has been in IT consulting services selling for over 21 years and is here to share with us how he has figured out what it takes to be a top performer over that length of time in the sales profession. So welcome, Brian. Can't wait to learn your lessons.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Well, can you give us a background on your selling career and really what were some aha moments that you can reflect back on that really have made the difference in what you've been able to produce in your different sales roles?
Sure. So my career primarily is I kind of knew I wanted to go into sales ever since I was in college. My stepfather was in sales, so I was very familiar with what it was, and he was pretty good at it. So I started out selling copiers right out of school, which is a good guerrilla warfare sales technique for most people. It's really door-to-door cold calling. It's the real trenches work, and it was good. I think it gave me a good perspective on how to work hard and really hustle. And then from there, soon after, I went into IT services sales. So I've been in the IT services sales space ever since. And for me, I mean, if you look at as a whole, what I've realized over the years is that in the beginning, when I started doing IT services sales, I was very inward facing and protective of all the information that I gathered out in the field, because we were very afraid that sharing any information with anyone would cause a competitor to come in and try to take your business away. Because when I sold the original type of IT services, they were more independent contractor IT services. And so we really didn't have a lot of control over the intellectual property or the resources. When I got into Magenic almost 10 years ago, though, we're more of we're a consultancy, a formalized consultancy where we have our own permanent employee consultants. And so one of our biggest assets is those people. And so what I realized is I could share, if I could share information on my workspace and where I work out of, I could actually get information back from other people that are in similar but not competing areas and really scale the business. So for me, when I started at Magenic, it was a greenfield operation, meaning we had no one on the ground but me and 3 consultants in the Boston office, and we've grown that now to about 75 consultants and one of the largest offices at Magenic. But it's all been done through, in my eyes, a lot of partnering and kind of getting to know the ecosystem that you play within, and then sharing information with others to get more information and try to scale the business.
Okay. So when you say partner and share information, it's not within your company you're referring to, it's more external partners that may have complementary products or services selling into the same company? Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. So for us, we're one of Microsoft's largest partners. So Microsoft is our core competency, is what we focus on. We do custom application development. We build custom line of business applications for our clients. And so we do that on the Microsoft platform. And Microsoft, although they have a smaller competing arm that does services like we do, they don't really rely on that. They rely on making more of their money on the sales of the licenses. Okay. And so they lean heavily on their partner network. And so I've been able to exploit the Microsoft relationship almost like they're my biggest client. So I treat them as if they're my biggest client, because they know who's buying the software, they know when the software is being installed, and they're always asked, who is your best partner to recommend to do the implementation? And so the closer you can get to them, it's almost like no one ever got fired for hiring IBM. It's kind of the same now for Microsoft. So we've really been able to build that bond here locally, and I have personal friendships with a variety. There's probably 200 people in just the New England region of Microsoft that each could have some level of influence on a deal, whether it's given a referral, whether it's walking us in to do a seminar, a symposium, a technical deep dive, whatever it is. It's just more touch points to the end clients, and we share very similar prospects. We're calling on the same people. So that's one area. But then Microsoft has this idea called the partner ecosystem, and these are other partners that would be very similar to Magenic, but they do things that are different than what Magenic does. So we may do custom application development. Another partner might do technology training. We're all calling on the same clients, but I'm not doing what they're doing and they're not doing what I'm doing. And so we'll
Right.
share information about who's doing what, when, and so there's a training partner that we partner up with. There's also an infrastructure partner. So they do IT infrastructure work, more like the nuts and bolts, the hardware, things that we don't do because we're building applications, but they're in the same accounts selling similar, but not competing services. And so you build up this notion of a partner ecosystem, and it
Okay.
really helps to scale the business out, especially when I was literally a man on an island here in Boston and I had to grow it. So now we're up to 3 or 4 account executives in addition to myself. But back then there's only so much you can do to scale yourself and your time.
Okay.
So
Well, this sounds like an incredibly smart way to really grow fast, which you've managed to accomplish.
yeah.
Can you look at maybe a couple of your top practices that have helped you form these partnerships that work best for you?
Um, well, first, the way I approach the partnership is I always enter the partnership as a what's in it for them, not what's in it for me. Because what I found is if you go into these partnerships with a what's in it for them mentality, you understand exactly what it is that's going to motivate that person. And let's use Microsoft for this example. For them, what motivates them is different than what motivates me. What motivates them is they like to sell what they call an enterprise license agreement. What that means is they lock up a client for a 3-year period, an annuity contract, where they're buying into the Microsoft platform, and then all they're going to do is just install more Microsoft throughout that company. Well, that really doesn't pay my bills per se, right? Because what I'm doing is I need to get in there and build the applications. Well, I need their software to do so. So it's good if they have an enterprise agreement, but I don't get paid for selling enterprise agreements. But at the same time, I know that Microsoft, if I go in and I understand how I can get them to sell an enterprise agreement, once they sell that enterprise agreement, they have to do what's called the deployment. They have to have that software deployed. Otherwise, the client's not going to renew that 3-year annuity. So really, at the end of the day, if I go into it saying, okay, what's Microsoft's goal in getting this software in there, then I can get in the back end all the deployment services that go with it. So whether I treat, whether it's Microsoft or a training partner, I try to go into it with whoever I partner with, what's important to them. And then typically most people, when you go out of your way to help them, they kind of owe you one, and they
Right.
come back and they give you information that's going to help you. I've partnered with other people who always put their selfish interests first, and we all have selfish interests, but you don't want to let that out to the person that you're trying to partner with. And I've found tremendous success by following that method. So,
It's brilliant because you're helping them look good. So
yep,
they want to do the same for you, and their success actually begets your success as well. So,
that's right. For me, I think I used to manage salespeople too in a past career, and there's two things that drive good salespeople in my eyes. It's recognition, and it's money, of course. And so we're all obviously we want to get the money, but the recognition too. I've always had a high degree of empathy for other people, and I think that's another key trait of salespeople is having high empathy, being able to put yourself in the other person's shoes. And so that is what that when you do that, when you go into it for the what's in it for them, really what you're doing is you're putting yourself in their shoes, and usually it pays back in spades after you give up the information. Going back to my first point, when I first got into this business and I came from more of a staff augmentation services background, we were reticent to share anything with anyone because we were afraid someone was going to steal our information. So
yeah.
it took me a good year to year and a half at Magenic to really get comfortable with really opening the kimono, if you will, and sharing the information. And nowadays people are going to be able to get this information anywhere. There's LinkedIn, there's all these databases ranking. You can find the information. So if you find a partner that you relatively think has got good business scruples and can trust, I mean, you can share the information. It's not like you're giving them the keys to the nuclear the
Right.
nuclear button or anything. I mean, this is information that they may be able to get elsewhere. Otherwise, you're just making it a little easier for them to get that information.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So I have a belief that top performers are not only for themselves, like you just said, and so they're looking to help others succeed, and you definitely do that on the partner side. Have you also taught this best practice within your company to help other regions really leverage it better?
Yes, because as a matter of fact, we have 5 regions, and each region deals with a different division of Microsoft, for an example, and there are other partner ecosystems: Chicago, Minneapolis, Atlanta, and San Francisco, and they have not had as good of experience with the Microsoft relationship. So I've actually been asked to train. So anytime a new person comes into the company, they always speak with me first to try to
Okay.
figure out how I built this from the ground up, and kind of just different techniques and practices, things I'm mentioning to you about, sharing and information and that type of thing. So yeah, I do get called on quite a bit to train internally. And then in addition, I have team members here on the ground, other account executives that they benefit from my relationship with Microsoft, which is nice. So they get leads in their territories that are shared territories with me, but then at the same time, they ask me for pointers and tips on, again, how I built the network and that type of thing. I really think working the network, I mean, you hear that a lot, especially with LinkedIn, but it's really who you know and your contact points. It just makes the path of entry a lot easier. I used to do a lot of guerrilla warfare, cold calling, and I'm not going to say cold calling doesn't work anymore, but I think warm calling works a lot better. And warm calling meaning even just a slight referral from a partner, another partner, or a well-known person that they may know. It just makes the barrier go down, I think, on who you're calling, and to get in there quicker.
Hmm. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
When you are working with your mentees, if you will, how do they get stuck or not achieve as great of success with the partnering strategy as you? Do you notice how they derail?
Yeah, I think in some cases they forget about what's in it for them, for the other person, and because they're so aggressively focused on hitting their goals that it's hard to step back and say, let me help this person, and it'll come back to me. So that takes a little bit, I think, of business maturity to do that. Also, I think a lot of it is hard work. I mean, if it's crazy, but it's hard because when you've got this, you treat your partners like clients. Well, that's like you have double the
Another
clients, right?
job.
Because now
Yeah.
you got to service your end client, which is the most important thing. If you're treating these other lead sources as clients, then you're giving them a lot of attention. So unfortunately, I don't think anything really replaces the hard work factor. I mean, I work, because I love what I do, and I love the business. I am always on, always connected, and I work, every night till midnight. Like usually my schedule is get up in the morning, get the kids off to school, work from, let's say, 8:30 a.m. until 5:30 p.m., do the soccer coaching and softball coaching after school and dinner, get the kids to bed at 9, and then every single night, including weekends, I'm usually online again from 9 till about midnight. And so that's
Okay.
kind of my life. And it's not necessarily life for all people, but for me, it doesn't necessarily feel like work. It's more just kind of part of who I am. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Fulfilling your passion.
Yeah.
So, Brian, how do you keep your mindset for success? What do you do to keep yourself in that mode?
For me, it's the notion of only the paranoid survive. I think,
Good Andy
I
Grove.
always worried about someone beating me. I'm extremely competitive, so it's more of an internal clock for me that I realize that, we always used to say in my other company, today's hero and tomorrow's zero, right? So you can't get too high, you can't get too low. You just gotta, you have a win, great. You have a loss, try to stay even keeled and keep pushing forward. But for me, it's just I'm very money motivated, so
Okay.
I like to have nice things. I got a wife with expensive taste, so I got to keep her happy, and 3 little girls with expensive taste as
There you
well.
go.
So I've got a lot to work for, 2 mortgages. So I think a lot of it for me is just it's internal motivation in that regard. But
Okay.
also a big part of it too is I want to be respected and liked by my peers. And so at my company, I'm looked to as a leader. The last thing I want to do is put up a goose egg or a down year. So luckily, in my 10 years, I've been able to constantly ramp it up and not really have a down year. So
Okay.
that's great. Knock on wood.
So, how do you keep improving yourself?
Well, we're good at Magenic's good about investing in us and training. So
Okay.
we go through different, because there's always new sales training. I've been through a
Right.
variety of them, spin selling and just David Sandler selling system. And then most recently, a good one that we've gone through is the Mahan Khalsa system of Let's Get Real or Let's Not Play, which is a really good. It's a program as well as a book, and you go to a 2-day symposium, and it really teaches you different ways to engage with the clients. A lot of their techniques is about kind of making it what's about the client, not about what it is about you. So it was actually good reinforcement for me to see that I think that what I'm doing is something that
It's
others are
good.
doing and having success with as well. So
Yeah, definitely.
the training is important, and I think just trying to stay motivated.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned the fact that essentially you have two jobs because you're servicing your end clients and you're also servicing your partners to, keep the ecosystem working.
Yeah.
How do you avoid distractions so you can keep focused on the most important priorities? I think that's a huge struggle for everyone today, especially in the field, and you've got limited time to be productive, but there's an awful lot of things calling for your attention. So how do you do it? Do you have any
For me,
tricks?
the key for me is outlook is a big distractor, as probably most people will acknowledge. So when I really need to focus and I'm in those core business hours when I know I have to get things done, I usually shut down Outlook or I just put it on offline mode so that I don't get the email where you're just living in email, which I know a lot of salespeople die in. And then the other thing is cool is a guy that I work with. He's introduced me to this online service called Focus at Will, where it just plays this background music that gets you really focused on whatever you're doing. It could be reading, writing, whatever it is, but it uses something with the limbic system in the brain. I just recently tried this, but it works pretty good. You just play this music in the background, you turn off your Outlook, and you really, you look up and 3 hours have gone by, and you've really been working hard on whether it's working on a proposal or making client calls. It's hard with the music, but a lot of our business revolves around thought work. I mean, for me, I'm a more senior salesperson, so I'm working on more strategic relationships that I've built. So it's not as much cold calling as it used to be, but it's trying to take that account and try to, how do you figure you can get the most out of it and grow it? And a lot of that time requires, research, proposal writing, and different things that you need to do. Mm-hmm. And so it's a really good tool for being able to focus on those things and bang them out quickly.
I'm glad you brought that up because so much of sales today is research in your prospecting phase. And as we know, Google can turn into a black hole and, you can waste a whole day. So if you've got some way to keep yourself unfocused on exactly what you're trying to get out of that research and then get it done and move on, that's smart.
Yeah, we have, we're lucky too that we hired a couple researchers recently as a company. Okay. And so they got some, more junior people, maybe right out of school or get it, maybe they're interns, but they literally will help us scour whether it's LinkedIn or we use RainKing, which is a third party tool for lead generation. And you can really work together with them and say, okay, here's my target, or let's say there's a new account. I want to get into Fidelity Investments. Here's what I know. Here's who I know. Help me augment this information. Then from there, you can build an account plan and kind of attack it.
Okay. So, and that sounds like something somebody could outsource.
Totally.
If they needed.
Yeah,
if they didn't have that.
There's a lot of services out there that offer similar services. We tried it externally and it didn't work as well as internally for us, just based on our business domain. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So do you have maybe one tip that you would offer to sales reps that aren't achieving top performance yet, maybe struggling or maybe just getting started? What's one tip that you would give them to really help accelerate their own performance curve?
Well, I'd say work smart and work hard. I don't think you can't say work smart, and don't work hard. I think you have to work smart and hard, especially in this economy, in this day and age. And so research is key. When you call a prospect, make sure you know their industry. That's another really important thing. People that I've been able to get through on relatively cold or warm calls, but I've understood at least their industry and I can speak their vernacular. I think it's important to do that. There's so many tips. One guy I worked with used to say nothing works and everything works. I'm sure you know that, but a lot of it is too. I think you gotta keep your nose to the grindstone. You gotta just be really motivated. And I think the other thing is being resilient, because as we know, the rejection's tough. So you try to just kind of. We used to joke about you pretend like you're not the one getting rejected. You put yourself in the corner and this is just your role for today, and so sometimes it's easier said than done, but you really need to just kind of go at it and not take the rejection personally. It's part of the game,
Well, it sounds like you definitely have figured out how to work smart. So I appreciate you sharing your great wisdom with us.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's fun. It's exciting for sure.
Thanks so much, Brian.
You're welcome.
And thank you to our viewers for tuning in and investing in your own success. The Sales Mastery Summit is here to help you never stop learning from the best. Take care.